That's the meeting recording now.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Leona. Can I welcome everybody along? Before I do that, can I, as you just heard, before we begin today, can I just remind you that the meeting is being recorded and that a meeting of the recording will be made available for public viewing on the Council's YouTube channel. So can I welcome everybody along once again? The officers attending the meeting are Margaret McCrossan and Barbara Clark from Finance, Fiona Muir from Internal Audit, and our own Linda Hutchison as Clerk. We also have John Cornett, Louisa Yule, and Emma Rose Drummond from Audit Scotland attending the meeting this afternoon. So can we, after what was said earlier on, there's no much point of asking apologies for absence if everybody's here. Is there any declarations of interest? None being intimated. We'll move on to the Chair's report. As you know, further to previous discussions at this committee and feedback we have received on issues raised in the Audit Scotland COVID-19 Guide for Audit and Risk Committees published in 2020. The Clerk contacted us in August and September this year seeking confirmation if there are any issues raised in that document, by exception, on which we wish to seek further feedback or assurances around now. Although Linda has not been requested to seek further feedback on anything thus far, I wanted to remind you that it still remains an option for us to do so at any point. Should you wish to pursue anything specific, please let either myself or the Clerk know. You'll be aware, of course, that various COVID-19 recovery updates have been and are continuing to be submitted to the Council, but it still remains open to bring anything specific to this committee. Thank you. We can now move on to item number 4, the annual accounts of the Council's Charitable Trusts. And I'm not sure that Margaret is going to speak to it or Barbara.
Well, I'll start off just now. We've got our external auditors with us that will be wanting to comment on their report. But it's just, I'm pleased to say that we've now got the audited accounts for 2021. They have been produced within the statutory timescale, which was 30th of November. And we're absolutely delighted to be able to do that because, again, because of the difficulties in auditing remotely and all the COVID pressures, not all councils have been able to do this. So I'm really pleased that between our officers and our external auditors, we've managed to deliver in line with the expected timescales. We have reports on both the Council's 7 charitable trusts and the Council's accounts themselves. Lots of detail there and action plans addressing all the findings that the auditors have come up with. I don't want to go into the detail. I'm sure the auditors will have their own comments to make, but in general, it's a pretty positive report. And as I say, we've addressed all of the points. One of the other things I'd like to say is that I'm particularly pleased that although in the audit process there are always various adjustments, there has been not a great deal of change to the bottom line since we submitted our draft accounts at the end of June. And I think that's a great testament to all the work that Barbara Clark and her team have put in producing the accounts. So I will hand over to Louisa. Are you taking the trust item first?
Thank you. Included within the papers is the ISA 260 letter, the proposed independent auditor's report and the ISA 580 letter. We have completed our work on the charitable trust funds, and I'm pleased to advise that the audit opinion, as shown at Appendix A of the paper, is unqualified, and this is the result that you're hoping to achieve. In my opinion, the financial statements properly present the receipts and payments of the charities and the statement of balances, and they've been prepared in accordance with the requirements of the Charities and Trustee Investment Act. In keeping with normal practice, some comments in the charitable trust have been included within the annual audit report for the Council, as detailed at agenda item 5. Charities in Scotland are required to meet the charities test. This consists of 2 criteria, both of which must be met. Firstly, they need to demonstrate that they have a clear charitable purpose, and secondly, that they provide a public benefit. All 7 charities within the Charitable Trust meet the first criteria around having a clear charitable purpose. However, when we considered the public benefit of each trust as part of our audit, we noticed, as outlined in the ISA 260 letter, that both the Lieutenant Duff Memorial Institute and the Endowment for Talented Children and Young People have had a lack of activity in the trust for a number of years, and this in turn could lead to them being considered dormant. A response has been provided from the trustees as shown within the resolution to the point, and this outlines planned actions for both funds. We'll review progress against these actions as part of the 21-22 audit and report on this as required. The ISA 580 letter is a standard letter, and I've not requested any additional assurances from management. Finally, I would like to thank the finance officers involved in the preparation of the financial statements and for their support provided throughout the audit process. It's been greatly appreciated, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Louisa. I'd like to point out that the Lieutenant Duff Hall has just undergone a major upgrade, and I'm quite sure that some of that money will be used for that, but I'm sure either Margaret or Barbara will be able to clarify that. I see John nodding. Anybody else? Any other comments? Questions? Annette?
Mine was actually my first one was the same as you've just said, Stuart. I saw that was down that it was being considered for a contribution. I wondered if we had confirmation of that and how much that would be. And also I saw that there was no movement on the Netherley account, but I think you've just covered why that's not listed as dormant. That's just been for 1 year, hasn't it? It has to be several years before it's considered. So that, yes, yeah, you answered that second one. So no, it was just about the Duff as well.
Margaret?
Our accountants are in discussions at the moment with the property team to determine how much of a contribution we can take from the Lieutenant Duff Fund towards the renovations that have been going on this year.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question or a comment? Margaret, your hand's still up. Thank you. If there are no other questions then, any other comments, we shall move on to item number 5, the annual accounts and draft annual audit report for the council. Margaret, Barbara?
Yes, Chair. Just again, the same comments as I made for the first item, but I think this time, John, are you going to comment this time on the main council accounts?
The floor's all yours, John.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Margaret. The papers that are in front of you in terms of the full council's accounts, the papers from us are essentially in 4 parts. There's a covering letter which is on page 27 of the agenda pack, our draft audit opinion on page 29, then we have the draft letter of management representation on page 33, and then the annual audit report itself, which starts on page 37. And I really just wanted to focus on the key messages in the annual audit report itself, Chair, which are on page 41 of the agenda pack. And you can see that the key messages are broken down essentially into 3 parts. We deal with the annual accounts, and although we've only 2 paragraphs there, it kind of understates the amount of work that we put into the accounts. And then we deal in 2 other parts around the wider dimensions. 3 other parts around the wider dimensions responsibilities that we have around financial management and sustainability, governance and transparency, and then best value. So in terms of the accounts, the position that we're in is that our work is complete or nearly complete. There's only a few administrative processes that we need to go through at this stage, and that's entirely normal for where we are in the audit process. We anticipate and we intend to issue an unqualified opinion on the financial statements, and that's the outcome that you're looking to achieve. It's the outcome that says the accounts present a true and fair view of the financial position of the authority for 2020-21. Having said that, you'll see from the detail of the report that there were a number of adjustments that we asked you to make. Some of them were quite significant in value, and we're over and above the materiality levels that we were working to. I think the key thing from our perspective really is two things. One, that those adjustments have been made to the accounts that are in front of you, and they've all been agreed by the officers, and they've been put through the accounts, as I say. The second thing is that from our perspective, and we've done some additional work around this, is that we're quite content that the errors that we've identified and the adjustments that we've identified are one-off issues. There's nothing systematic or underlying behind those issues that we're concerned about. They're kind of the usual sort of run-of-the-mill type of errors and adjustments that we would expect to pick up through a normal audit process. So there's nothing that gives us too much concern around that, and nothing that's untoward that sits behind those adjustments. It's probably worth saying that a couple of the adjustments that have been put through are the result of late guidance that has come out from LASAC, particularly around accounting for personal protective equipment, PPE, and that was very late guidance coming through after you had prepared the draft accounts. So they're not errors in the true sense in that respect, or certainly the PPE issue isn't an error in the true sense. It's a reflection of that late accounting guidance. And we've also made a number of recommendations where we think that you can achieve and seek further improvements in the current arrangements that you have, and particularly around the work of your valuer and how your valuer works with the finance team to take forward some of the issues that we've identified as part of this year's audit. And we provided some detail for you around that in the report, and we've talked that through with officers on a number of occasions. So there's a number of recommendations in the report around that. In terms of the wider dimensions areas, financial management, from our perspective, is a very positive report in terms of the arrangements that you've had in place. Financial sustainability, I think, along with every other council in Scotland and a lot of public sector bodies in Scotland, the position that you find yourselves in this year, or at the end of 2021 the 2020-21 financial year, is something unique in terms of you have quite an inflated level of reserves shown in the accounts, and that's primarily due to the late receipt of COVID-19 funding from the Scottish Government. And therefore, consequently, those reserves are largely earmarked or ring-fenced for specific purposes. And to a certain extent, they mask the continued financial challenge that you as an organisation face, and that many organisations face within the public sector. So on the face of it, it looks as though that there are large cash balances that are available to spend, but the reality of it is that they're earmarked and ring-fenced, and the challenging financial issues that are underlying the environment that you work within still remain and continue, and are likely to require some difficult decisions, both from officers and members to take action to address those challenges. In terms of governance and transparency, again, very positive report from our perspective. We've highlighted the emergency arrangements that you put in place at the start of the pandemic, and we've concluded that they were appropriate and that they worked well. They were effective and they supported the continued good governance of the council. And best value, again, is a positive report from our perspective in terms of the arrangements that you've got in place, both to assure yourselves around best value, but also in response to the best value report that we issued a number of years ago. That was all I wanted to say in terms of the report itself, Chair. The other thing I just wanted to go back to very, very quickly is the letter of management representation, and just to highlight to you that that's again the standard letter that we would ask you to send to us, and we'd ask Margaret to sign on your behalf. And we haven't asked for any specific or unusual representations from you this year. It is just the standard letter that we've asked you to send to us. If I can just very quickly finish off by expressing my thanks to Margaret and to Barbara, and also the rest of the finance team. I think Margaret highlighted it in her opening comments earlier on, that this year has continued to be an unusual and a difficult year, with everybody working remotely, with both teams working remotely, and trying to deliver the audit and produce the accounts in a remote environment. I really just wanted to express our thanks to the finance team for the help and support that they've given us during the year. And the approach that we have is very much a partnership approach to get to the outcome that we're sitting at today, which means that we're going to sign off ahead of the deadline at the end of the month. And so if I could ask for my thanks to be recorded in the minutes, I'll be very, very grateful. Chair, that's all I was going to say. I'm happy to take questions or explore any of the issues in the report in more detail, if that would be helpful.
Thank you very much, John. I have to say that whatever political perspective you're coming from, or none, as in my case, I think we really do have to thank the finance staff, Margaret, Barbara and their staff, for all the work they've done in this particularly challenging year, to put it mildly. Does anyone else have any further comments or questions to ask either the finance team or the external audit? I don't see a lot of hands going up. So can I also thank John and your team as well for all your comments as well. Everything that I have seen and read about it, and I must admit I haven't read it word for word, the whole report, but everything I can see has been very positive. So thank you very much. We'll move on to the item 6, Interim Treasury Management Report. I think Margaret this time.
No,
nope.
me.
Barbara? Okay, I'll get it right sometime.
Okay, thank you, Chair. As part of the Council's Treasury Management Strategy, the Chief Financial Officer is required to report on the 6-monthly activities of its Treasury Management operations, and this report is to achieve that requirement. This is a very high-level report showing the Council's debt position, along with graphs depicting the movement in investment and borrowing over the first 6 months of the financial year. From the report, you can see that the long-term borrowing is fairly static, with only a small amount of debt paid off during the period. The anticipated in-year PWLB borrowing of 30 million has not yet been taken due to the high levels of short-term investment that we currently have, and therefore the available balances with our counterparties in which to invest the funds until utilised are restricted. As part of the Council's strategy, the percentage of variable rate loans should be no more than 30% of the total debt outstanding, and in the first 6 months of the year, this peaked at just over 7%. This will creep up as PWLB is paid off or reduce as further PWLB loans are taken. With regards to the short-term investments, these have decreased slightly due to cash flows in both capital and revenue. Both expenditure and income can fluctuate daily depending on whether there's just been a pay run or a large creditor run, so the short-term balances reflect these cash flow movements. The prudential indicators in the report help to confirm that the capital investment plans and treasury management decisions are affordable, prudent and sustainable. In particular, the prudential indicators 3 and 4 demonstrate that the Council is operating well within its limits. Lastly, the report requests that the committee recommend to the Council that the attached list of counterparties be approved. This is slightly amended from the counterparty list approved recently as part of the 2021 year-end report, with an increase in the Bank of England deposit limit from 25 million to 30 million. All investments are restricted to UK bodies with high credit ratings, with the maximum period of investment in general restricted to 6 months. And I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
Thank you, Barbara. Any questions, comments at all? Quite happy with the report? And Annette?
No, I'm happy. I'm really happy with the report. It's another good report. I should have come in the last paper, but it's just more for all the papers before us today. It's just to reiterate what Councillor Miller said. So much hard work's been put into these, and they're coming back really positive. So it was just to say a huge thank you. That was all. I should have come in. Sorry, Chair. I should have come in the last paper.
That's okay. Come in and praise everybody every time if you like. I'm not particularly bothered. I'm sure the staff would be quite happy to take it. Any further comments? Nothing at all, no questions. Okay, we can then move on to the item 7, which is the internal audit plan. And I'll probably try and get this one right. That's Fiona to speak to this.
It is, yes.
There we go. Got it right eventually.
Unfortunately, Michelle couldn't attend today's meeting, so she's asked me to present the Internal Audit Plan Progress Report to the 30th of September. There were 2 audit reports relating to Plan 21-22 audit work, which have been issued in the quarter to the 30th of September. Appendix 3 give details of the 5 reports relating to 2021 and 21-22, which have been issued and responses received since the last progress report. There was 1 high-risk recommendation which was not accepted by management, and this was highlighted at the last audit committee meeting. Responses have been received for the following 5 audit reports. Firstly, follow-up of corporate and community audits, and a full copy of this report and the responses has been circulated to audit and scrutiny committee members already. Secondly, creditors. There was 1 high-risk recommendation, 3 medium-risk recommendations, and the remaining were low-risk. All medium-risk recommendations were accepted by management, but the high-risk recommendation was not accepted. This was highlighted at the last audit committee meeting, and audit have since been advised that the report that will identify orders over 50,000 without procurement authorisation has now been made available to procurement for testing and feedback to core systems. Number 3 was the financial ledger and budgetary control audit. There were 5 low-risk recommendations and 2 medium-risk recommendations, all of which have been accepted by management. Number 4 was gas servicing audit, and there were 4 medium-risk recommendations, all of which were accepted by management again. And lastly was the payment of invoices indicator. There were 2 recommendations made, and both of these were low risk and both were accepted by management. For fraud and irregularity and contingency time, 1 new item was dealt with in the quarter using contingency time, and this was in relation to the recently implemented annual permit scheme for garden waste. There was no loss of cash or assets to the council, and any initial teething problems appear to have been resolved. Committee is asked to note Internal Audit's progress report for the quarter and indicate if they wish any reports to be circulated to members.
Thanks. There's Annette once again.
Oh, thanks, Chair. Fiona, it was just, I think you may actually have answered the question that I had jotted down. It was on page 241, and it was the with regard to the items that started below 50,000 and then went over 50,000. So did you just confirm there that that is actually, I think I'd written down, is there any work underway to put something in place to track this? But I think you've just said that there is something that is.
Yes, the report's been written and it's available now. So I think procurement are intending to run the report on a weekly basis. So it should pick up all these items.
That's really good. That's really good news. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Annette. Anyone else? Nobody else? No comments, no questions? Okay, that brings us to the end of the committee meeting this afternoon. Can I thank everyone for their attendance, and we'll see most of the folk at the council meeting just in an hour and a half's time or there or thereabouts. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for attending again.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.